Hello, and well, hello. I don't know if I said that too early. Hello and welcome. This is Heather, and
Hi.
Hi, Heather. How are you doing? We will be presenting the Jamboard session today. Really looking forward to showing you all about this collaborative whiteboard space that you can use as part of the G Suite packages of tools, which are accessible through Glow, but also through your Google account as well. So really happy to be able to do that. So big welcome to Heather. Heather, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Heather Rhodes. I'm a music teacher at Calderglen High School in South Lanarkshire Council.
That's good. And Heather is a Google certified trainer and educator. You've probably been a trainer for about a year, nearly, I guess. Maybe not quite a year.
6 months, because I did my training in June or July.
So really looking forward to kind of just talking you through a few ideas that we have, sharing how to use Jamboard. It's going to be a pretty slow and steady session, just kind of talking you through the tools as we go, and just sharing thoughts. Heather, how have you been using Jamboard with your classes?
If I'm totally honest, I don't think I've utilised it to its full potential. I think there's always things that just keep coming out to benefit it, the newest thing being the backgrounds. I've got a couple of things that I can show you in regard to how I've used it in my classroom, etc. But mostly during lockdown, I used it to kind of brainstorm with the pupils to find out kind of prior knowledge, understanding, as a digital whiteboard that way.
So really similar to you, I've not used it as much as I would have liked to have used it, but it's one of those tools which a few months ago, when we were in lockdown, I wasn't completely sure how much development or investment Google were placing into the product, and it felt like it hadn't had any updates for a while, and then we've suddenly had a kind of host of updates since I made a introduction to Jamboard video, like the background that you just referenced there. And I'm like, well, actually, this is something they're obviously investing in terms of the software version, so let's start kind of making better use of it. And I guess I've created Jamboards in terms of like templates that I've set up, a little bit similar to the virtual Jotter stuff that I was speaking about last night. And then I've also done a few bits in terms of using it with colleagues as well for us to, as you said, kind of brainstorming ideas. Using the post-it note feature is really lovely, and it handles those post-it notes absolutely fabulously. So we will certainly be having a look at that. So what I'll start off by doing is I'll bring my screen in, and I can show you here kind of how I would suggest that you access Jamboard, just to make sure you're getting yourself kind of accessing this live in terms of the right account. So go into the new button in Google Drive, and I would get to Google Drive from your tile on Glow, and I would go down to more, and then you can see here you've got the option for Google Jamboard. So I would be selecting that option, and you'll see here it opens you up into a brand new Jamboard, which is great. The other way to get in is to go in via jamboard.google.com, and that lands you on this page here. And this page is a board which space that has all your recent jams on it. So in Jamboard to kick off. So what I'll do is I'll start off by talking through just some of the basic features and the layout, and then we'll move over to Heather, who will be able to hopefully show us a little bit more about making use of some of the tools that we've got available within the Jamboard package. So at the top here, you've got the ability to be able to name your Jamboard. So I'm just going to kick off and call this Demo Jam. I'm going to hit OK there. You can see the name's changed. I've got the ability to see my different frames. So let me just expand that frame bar. So you can have just one frame on a Jamboard if you want, or you can have multiple frames, and you can use these plus symbols here to add frames before or after the frame that you're on, or in between, just like so. Clicking into a frame, you can see here you've got that more button that we're becoming really familiar with, those three dots. And so if you've already got some content on a frame, you can duplicate it, or you can delete frames that you no longer wish. So frames bar, great for being able to manage it, and you can certainly fit lots and lots of frames on. Just I'd say not too many, because it can be a little bit difficult to manage. On the right-hand side here, you've got some more actions. And this is really if you want to kind of download, save a frame, delete the whole Jamboard, make a copy. But what is nice is this update section here. And this gives you the option to be able to see the help section and changes that come to Jamboard as well. So that just helps you keep up to date with the package if that's what you want to do. And if you're using Jamboard and you see something that's not working as you'd expect it to work, or you think, oh, there's some functionality here that I really, really need, then make sure you send that feedback to Google. They're really good at looking at every piece of feedback that comes in and seeing the changes that can be made. So if we have a physical device, there's a physical hardware device called a Jamboard. If you have one of those, they're pretty expensive. I don't know anyone in Scotland who's got one, but if you do, let me know on Twitter at Mr. Voss. I'd love to come and see it. I've seen one at the Google offices in London, which was pretty cool. And I can see, in terms of kind of replacing the interactive whiteboards that some of us have in classrooms, that could be a pretty cool option. However, mightily expensive at the moment, so maybe not something that you have. But if you want to open it on a physical Jamboard, there is a button there. Okay, Heather, I don't know if you wanted to kind of take over from here and do some of the drawing tools and some of the bits on the Jamboard itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to share this Jamboard with you so you can come in on this one, or are you wanting to bring in your own screen for that?
Can I bring in my own screen?
Yeah, of course you can. That's no problem. I'll take mine out, and you share away, and I'll bring that in. So we've got a whole selection of tools that are available to use, and those tools will allow you to do drawing, kind of rub stuff out, add your pictures, and shapes, text boxes. Are you ready, Miss Rhodes?
Yeah, I think I've managed to share the right screen.
And fantastic. And there you go. It's live on the screen. It's all yours.
Perfect. So I'll talk you through just a couple of templates that I've created. I've used each one of these as just an example from a selection that I've used. So what I've done in this one here, obviously to do with music and subject related one, I've created a passage of text in here just by using the text box on the left hand side and typing in the information into there. So I've created a paragraph of text for my pupils in which to read through. And then I've created a couple of boxes down the bottom in which they've to pick out the words from the text and put them into the correct category for which they form into for the music columns for National 5. So all I did using that was using the text boxes, creating a couple of shapes for them, and then typing in the words into the text. And I've created a big yellow nice sticky note, as Mr. Vosser was talking about. The sticky notes is an absolutely great feature, and it's quite nice that you get to change the colours of the different types of sticky notes as well, which I find quite fun. So that there was quite an easy one for us to do, and all I did was I shared it with my class just by using the big blue button that appears on any Google Doc, sheets, forms, slides, etc. Just easy enough to share by clicking and then selecting whoever that you're wanting to share. So if I share this with Mr. Vosser, then he's able to get a copy of this one. He's now for an editor, so he can now edit my document, and he should pop up in the top corner if he does get that link. So that was just using text boxes and the post-it note feature. And what I've done is I've created another one, as you've seen at the top here, for the different frames. But here's one or an example that might be used for English.
I know, just like magic, I've managed to join your Jamboard there.
See you at the top corner. To have you. So this one, Mr. Vosser could even do this task for us if you wanted. So the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, and what I'm suggesting is that they use the boxes down the bottom to click and drag and put the coloured boxes on top of the different words. You can also, as you can see that he's moving them, I can in the top corner with the 3 wee dots, click duplicate. So
I'm not brave enough to do it in case I make a mistake, so I'll leave you to do the demo and the dragging. But thanks.
So you can click and drag over the words, for example. I'm not going to do this right, just for demonstration purposes, that I can put the boxes over the different words, etc., and move them forward. So it might be quite good if that's a task maybe that could be done for English, or could be done, for example, for French, to kind of show their knowledge and understanding of different parts of speech. You could also, for example, have boxes down the bottom that might even have words in them that you've left a sentence blank. For example, in music performance, we have a question in a listening paper that says, listen to this piece of music and identify the instrument playing. And what I might do is create a couple of boxes and things that could have different instruments that they then tie into the question, or the music is in and then blank time, and then you would ask them to put in, for example, in a box, the word, etc., and then put in a suitable word that would fit into the sentence. So that's an easy one to do just by creating boxes.
I really like that one, Heather, and I think if we'd had a primary teacher on, they would have known all about the nouns and the verbs and the adjectives, etc. Really good with that stuff. But I think the top tip that I take away from that is this idea and ability to be able to use the Control-D to be able to duplicate the item. I think that's a really good shortcut, and that's well worth putting in your explanation for learners, because that will save them a lot of time if they can do that, save them trying to draw out boxes again.
I find that quite handy if I'm ever given an instruction to a group, for example, is to put the controls in, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't know how to do that, or if you've demonstrated in class and they've now completed it as a homework task, it's quite nice to put the extra ones in for you, and then obviously duplicating it afterwards. Again, you can use Control-D, clicking on the box, or the 3 dots and duplicates. There's 2 options to do it, which I think is quite good.
Yeah, it's fab.
So I've obviously given you like a kind of primary schoolish version for this one here, but like I said, you could easily adapt it for question styles at National 4, 5 or higher, especially if you're looking for like if a question is in the exam paper, listen or look at this question and there's a blank box, for example, and you ask them to put in options. You could easily make that a click and drag exercise as well, to see do you understand what this question's asking you for. So that's just boxes, text boxes, and shapes. The shapes box on the side is set to a standard circle. If you click on the little tiny arrow next to it, you've also got the options for squares, triangles, diamonds, etc. So there's wee arrows as well, so you save your time instead of drawing them. Another example that I've used is this one here when we were talking about brainstorming. I've used this one again, like I said, a lot during lockdown, especially when we were creating new topics of work. It was quite nice to see how much prior knowledge and understanding that the pupils had before. We also used this at the Scottish GEG meeting that we had, it was last week, and we had to click on to a single tile or a single post-it note and to put our ideas in. One thing I do always ask though is when a pupil is putting a sticky note on, that they put their name underneath. That's something that I found when a pupil's putting a sticky note on, it doesn't let me know who's added that information like a Google Doc would if I went into version history or slides. So it might be worthwhile if it's a class topic that you're looking to see how much does that pupil know and understand, that it might be quite nice to say, please make sure that you add your name to your sticky note to see who's contributed and who's not. So easy brainstorming idea that they can click on and delete, for example, and that's again just using the sticky note feature and function and just the text box in the circle.
I think what's really fab there, Heather, is when you keep adding text boxes, it handles really nicely in terms of it spaces out the text boxes, it spaces out the sticky notes automatically for you. The text box feature is a new feature that's just recently been released, because before that I was advising people to create a sticky note with no background and use that as a text box. So it's really good to have a text box that you can resize and have a bit of formatting of as well. So that's great. This looks really good.
So easy brainstorming idea for this one. In my next one, I've got just a really easy kind of thumbs up, thumbs down section. I've just created this because I've left it blank. So when pupils, if I did share this with anyone, I would ask them to put in a sticky note by themselves, because this way I know how many people, for example, would go for the green thumbs up and how many people would then go for the red thumbs down. At this point, I just wanted it to be blank. So that could be a general question of how do you find, how ready do you feel for your prelim, for example? And then I could get them to put a sticky note with their name on the green thumbs up or the red thumbs down, so I know who, for example, might need a little bit more work or one-to-one support for that. Or a general question about, did you like the end of unit topic? I'm looking for some feedback, and it could be used as like an exit ticket to the class as well. You could use for that, and then the pupils just stick on the sticky note and they kind of have free reign about what they'd like to put on, and again they can choose their colour, and then they can add their name, etc., and their comment.
Another place I can see that working really nicely, Heather, is you've got a big interactive whiteboard. Children will be able to come up and actually drag their name. I mean, maybe not at the moment because we might not want lots of people touching the same board service, but certainly, looking to the future, if they've already got their post-it notes and names on, or if they're all on their own devices, they can all access the same Jamboard. And I'm going to show you how to do the sharing settings in just a bit. But no, this is really lovely.
So another option could be like Ian's saying, is to, for example, to put a sticky note in with a pupil's name. And what I could do is just put the sticky notes at the side. And like Ian's saying, if we did have an interactive whiteboard or something like that, what they could do is then click and drag their name over to whichever side that they need to check. So we can do either whichever way they want to. So it's another option. One other option, if this was you wanted to duplicate this, so say you wanted to put a text box at the beginning that said, or a text box up the top that said, how do you feel about the Scottish music? Then what you could do is put that at the top, for example. Again, you can change, if it's too big, you could change the size of the font and put it in the middle. And just leave it there, so that's kind of leaving the background. What you could do is the top 3 buttons on the More action up next to the Share button is you can save the frame as an image or download it as a PDF, and then that background would be able to be saved. So I've now got a features of music background. What's a whole Jamboard's that feature, and then I could put that onto a new background if I wanted to, and I could save it that way. So that it stays, so I don't have to keep recreating it if I don't want to. But 2 more examples. I've got a music one here. I know that we found over lockdown it was quite hard for pupils to submit written musical notation, especially if they didn't have access to any of the software that was available to them. So what I've done in here, and this was something that I used during using the new backgrounds. So up the top here, this is a background. So I can use the rubber function. So I've written on this one just now. I can use the rubber function to delete everything that's on here. But if you notice, when I'm rubbing out those notes, I'm not rubbing out the background. And if I also use the function, I can't click on this and I can't move it anywhere. It entirely stays at the background of the page, which I thought was quite useful. So to do that, I just went to set background. And in here, you've got default settings. So you've got a blank one, which is standard. We've got one with dots, one with lines, a graph paper, grey graphs, blue board or chalkboard. And then this last one here is your option for an image. And when I went into image, just like many of the features within Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Slides, etc., I have the option to select a file from my Google Drive, upload one that I've got myself, take a picture from my camera, or search Google Images or Google Photos. So all I did in this one was search for music manuscript, and then I added this picture in here, and then this became my frame background, and that's the picture that went into the background for me. So that now stays, no one can move that. I've seen primary school teachers taking pictures of text, for example, and made it their background, and then asked pupils to annotate it. So things like find me a full stop, identify where there should be a capital letter, like the verb ones as well, that could be used for, or any kind of other vocabulary, or maps, could be a picture, find me or locate me the following place on the map, or anything like that. So it's quite nice to have that set as a background that pupils cannot move at all, set and it stays.
I think the real power there, Heather, is the ability to be able to put whatever you want on as the background. And if you haven't, if you can't find what you're looking for on, Google Images, then you have that option to be able to create a background yourself using Google Drawings, for example, or Canvas, which is quite a simple package available with all the Chromebooks as standard. And, that's a case of then, personalizing the frame, the background frame, to however you want it, and then just letting the children work at the space on top. And, I think you said in terms of the benefit of that, it means they can't make changes or edit that background, but they can work in the space without worrying that they've moved something or they lose something behind another object or something. So yeah, lots of flexibility there. Really love how that's looking.
I really like the feature that they can't actually delete it either.
Mm-hmm.
Because you always have that worry that you put something in and they'll manage to delete it. But in this background, they can't delete it at all. All you can do is write on it or annotate it. There's nothing else they can do with that. Maybe they can delete my sticky note or can delete my pictures at the bottom. But other than that, they can't delete it at all.
Mm-hmm. And just like I spoke about yesterday, once you've got those backgrounds set up and that Jamboard set up how you want, you can assign it to people through Google Classroom, and you can make a copy for each student, or you can let them all work on the same Jamboard, either as viewers or as editors. And we'll look a little bit more like that about that when I look at the sharing settings in just a minute. I think you have another little bit more to show us.
I've got one more, I think. Yep, this was just using the background feature to show you that you can, for example, have one with just lines. And what you could do, for example, is use the pen feature. Obviously, if you had, for example, like a Surface Pro or an interactive whiteboard, this would be easier to write on than with a mouse. But what you could do is, for example, if you were doing a spelling lesson or a handwriting lesson or something like that, you'd be able to write on the lines. This actually isn't too bad.
You're doing really well there with that thing.
I'm concentrating here. Can you tell?
Yeah, I can. I know we're in Falkirk Council rolling out iPads to all the young people and the teachers. So for us being able to use, for example, an Apple Pen on the iPad, that's going to work really, really nicely.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to people using Jamboard. And I think, we'll be able to write live. And obviously for maths colleagues, there's some other backgrounds, isn't there, in terms of squares and dots and things. So, hopefully there's something there that will work for everyone. Or, of course, import your own background. And I think, with the pen, if you're working something through, you can obviously have that up on your interactive whiteboard or your projector. You could have it displaying on the children's devices, and that could include children's devices who may be isolating at home as well. So, providing they're in the Jamboard watching live, and you'll be able to see all their little profile pictures up. I mean, that's going to work. That's going to work good, isn't it?
What you could also do is, I've seen a few teachers who've used this as their interactive whiteboard. So instead of using the whiteboard and like a show me board pen and writing on there, what they're doing is they're using their notes and stuff as that this is their main whiteboard essentially, which would be quite good if we did have interactive facilities. We've got a couple of C touches, I think, up in ICT, and Gaelic have one, I think. So this again could be something that you could be utilising. And again, you've got the option of different coloured pens and brushes and highlighters and markers and stuff. So you can change it depending on what you're looking for. So I could highlight, for example, the word hi.
So I've used the Jamboard with the C Touch device, and I can confirm it works really, really well. If you want to just kind of momentarily highlight something, you've got the laser as the bottom option there, yeah. And
it kind of goes away, for example, yeah, it doesn't stay.
Yeah, that works really nicely. So we're demonstrating the Jamboard to you on the desktop, the browser-based desktop version, and that has some functionality, but there's slightly additional functionality both on the Android Chrome app and also the iPad app as well. And that mainly is to do with the drawing features in terms of the ability to have auto draw, so you can start drawing things, and also the ability to kind of drop in documents and other documents from Google Drive, so that you can then annotate them. So we're not going to demonstrate that today, because just looking at the browser-based one, but certainly when I'm up and running with an iPad, I'll be giving you a full demonstration of the additional functionality there. Heather.
That's me all finished. That's my 7 or my 6 frame bars that I've used and utilised before.
That's really good. What I'll do is I'll bring your screen out, and I'll bring my screen in just for a few moments, and talk us through a few of the tools and some of the sharing settings. And then we'll bring you back in, Heather, just to kind of finish things up with me, if that's okay. So in terms of looking down here on the left-hand side with our tools that we have available, you can see here that we've got the pen tool, and when I click into the pen tool, I've got some options there in terms of what color I want the pens, and also what style that I want it. The eraser tool is there as well. If I have, well, what I could do, I could draw myself in green, a little bit of a circle there, and then I can go and rub that out and make that look a little bit neater. I have the ability then to drop in a sticky note, so I say hello there, and I can keep adding sticky notes, and you can see how that lines them up neatly for me. But if I do want to move them around, I can click in there to the sticky note and drag it around like so. If I want to add an image, so it works similar way to adding the image for the background. You have the choice to upload. You can grab something from Google Images, or you can get something from Google Drive if you want to. I've just got a picture here of Robin Hood. I quite like that one there. If we look down a bit, you'll see here we've got the shapes which Heather spoke about, and what I just wanted to point out in terms of with the shapes is I can drag them around as well, but I've got the option here to be able to edit their colours and their fill colour as well, or I can make it transparent if I want to. There is Robin Hood. So I think it's nice to be able to click in it and get some additional options up here. Down here with my text box, this is where I get some formatting options. I can make that nice and big. Might need to click back in. Oh. So once you've clicked out of it, to get back in there, I just double clicked to get that to load back in. So that's made that nice and big, and I can have some limited options in terms of how I format that. This is designed to be a super simple, nice and easy space to be able to use. And if I don't like what I have, then I've just got that option to hit the clear frame button and everything's gone. But if I didn't mean to clear the frame, then I can just hit that undo button. Okay, I think it's time for me then to have a little look at the sharing settings. So I'm going to go up here to the share button. At the moment, the Jamboard that I'm working on is only shared with me as the owner, and this is on my demo account. If I wanted to add a learner to this, I can do that, and I can add them in as an editor or a viewer. I think I set up a group called like demo learners. Can't remember what I called it. I could share it with all my classroom teachers, as that is a group I can find. So all the classroom teachers who are within my domain, you'd have your school name there instead of classroom teachers. And then you can add them to be editors or viewers. If you had a Google Classroom, you'd be able to find your classroom through that as well, to be able to share it with groups that way. What I'm going to do though is just share it with one student at the moment, and they can be a viewer and hit send. So that's one way with the sharing settings in terms of going in and sharing it with a particular personal group. One of the other things that you can do is share via the link. So the share via the link is quite a powerful option because it will allow me to share it completely publicly if I'm set up as a teacher and that's enabled on my domain, or I can share it with just people within my organization. So in my demo organization here, the Ian Vosser Academy for Excellence, I'm currently sharing it with anyone in the organization, and they can be a viewer. All I would need to do is copy that link and send it to them. If it's on restricted, it's going to be just the people in this top section here. And if I change that again and have it down here to the anyone with a link, then it means anyone on the internet will be able to view that. And I can change that to editor as well. So if you've got people on a device where they're signed into their account, then the anywhere, the kind of the domain, the Falkirk Council, South Lanarkshire Council, or whatever your school name is will appear there. That's absolutely fine to use. If you've got people working on devices and they're not logged in, you just want to be able to quickly go in, then I would use the anyone with the link option, copy and paste that into my Teams page, or send that out via an email or whatever virtual learning platform you're using. But then when I've finished kind of having that window open time while I want them to be in as editors, I'd either change that to viewers or I'd turn that back to restricted or within my domain. So I wouldn't be leaving things open for people for kind of a long amount of time, just in case anyone came in and did something that you wouldn't want them to do. And I guess that's just thinking about your kind of security side of things there, which is of course really important. Okay. Heather, did that all make sense in terms of with the sharing stuff?
Absolutely. I've just got one question.
Yeah.
If I created a shared or a Jamboard in a shared drive, I only end up with two sharing options. I only end up with restricted or South Lanarkshire Council. I don't end up with any more.
Yeah. So if it's set up in a shared drive and that shared drive is owned by your organisation, it will depend on your school or local authority settings. So currently within Glow, the settings on the shared drive is it's owned by the organisation, so it treats it like a child could access it, because children can be added to shared drives. The learner accounts can be added to shared drives, so they don't see the option to be able to make it public. So that's the same with Google Sites as well. So you've got something like that which you do want to be able to share publicly for a reason. Don't put it in a shared drive, stick it in your My Drive of a teacher account, and then share it out that way. So I'm a big fan of using shared drives, because I think it helps keep documents available for the organisation if you move on, and they're not just tied to one personal Google account, which is really, really good. But we obviously need to be aware that there's a few limitations with the shared drive sharing settings at the moment, because of the way the Glow tenancy is set up. And of course, that's focused around keeping learners safe, which is right and proper. But that might be something that could be looked at. Any more difficult questions, do drop them in the chat, or I'm sure Heather will come up with some more for me. So yeah, any comments or questions to ask. Any more questions, Heather?
Oh, I think that's me. I tend to make my own stuff in my personal drive and then make a copy and put it into the shared drives instead, so I know that I've got a backup for that, anyone with a link if needed as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it, in terms of create something in your own space and then share it in the shared drive, because then that's that's the copy that you're effectively going to leave behind should you ever move on somewhere else, which can be quite tricky. So good. Well, I think we've kind of covered lots of stuff. I think Jamboard's one of these things where you just need to kind of dive in and have a go. It's not massively complicated. It's super simple. I guess my top tips are: consider how you set your backgrounds up and what you want your backgrounds to look like. My next thought is then, of course, looking at the sharing settings and making sure you're sharing out properly, whether that's through Google Classroom or another virtual learning platform. And then, sticky notes is absolutely fab. And yeah, any kind of top final thoughts from you, Heather?
Just the integration with the Google Classroom. Utilize it that way. I think it's great that you can, link it with the Google Classroom as well. It doesn't just have to be a standalone side platform that you can use. Yeah,
no, I think integrating it as best you can with Classroom is really important. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. It's been very much appreciated. If you've watched this up on Catch Up and you've seen it all the way through to the end, well, thanks very much for staying with us. Next week, there's a few things: Google Drawings and feedback in Google Classroom as well. Have a little look at rubrics. So please do try and check those out either live next week or on demand at a time that suits you. Thanks very much. Thanks, Heather, for joining us. That, I think, was much more successful than we had last time when we had our Chrome Music Lab, where we tried to do some shared piano work, and my keyboarding stroke piano skills were very, very poor. Heather's obviously not moved for half an hour, so her lights have gone out. So that's a sign, obviously, for us to finish today's session. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye, everyone.